your book just so naturally and beautifully integrates religious belief practices. You're talking about your own faith journey. You're talking about where you came from in terms of your perspectives on faith and church stuff and environmentalism. And this is so I saw this as a beautiful sort of integrative project of two things that people sometimes see as not in a friendly conversation.
Right. Yeah, it's funny because I mean, you've written so much about people leaving the church and what that means for our society, for our country, especially. And it's funny to me because I'm not a religion scholar. I'm not but I work with college students who will be the first ones to tell me, "Oh, I'm spiritual but not religious." And I don't teach religion, but I teach environmental education. When I ask them to talk about how they were raised, if it was in some faith tradition or not, um, how were they? Just how were you raised in terms of faith and spirituality? That's all I will say. And I can't get them to stop talking.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's not that their first thing to say, "Well, I don't believe in organized religion." Like they lead with that, but when I take them, and in the book I describe taking my students to this conservation cemetery that looks like the woods. It looks like a park. You can't really even see the plots unless someone has just been buried. And like I cried reading their responses to on their final exam when I asked them what stood out to you on that visit. And the spiritual questions that thinking about death raises in all of us, it doesn't matter what we call ourselves in terms of faith traditions. That is a collective shared part of our humanity. And yeah, and I think it's kind of some, in a way, it's like climate change, where people are concerned in the U.S. about it, but not enough people are talking about it. Um, our spirituality. I think my students, I find that they're, if you just pop the cork a little bit, they want to talk, and I don't know that they have a lot of opportunities to, if that makes any sense.
I actually really love that part when you're talking about that visit to the cemetery with your students towards the end of the book. I
Oh
thought that
goodness.
was just amazingly beautiful. It was really well written too. So,
Well, it's one of those things. Like I thought, like, oh, are they? I think they're just tired. It's really cold. They're not really. Maybe they're not into it. I mind read too much as a teacher, and then when you read, when I read their responses, they were cold. They were tired, and they were stunned by the integration of their spiritual questions with death, with care for the earth, which is what they like want to do with their lives.
well, it seems a natural place to uh, address these connections, the spirituality,
Mhm.
even our great rituals and traditions that are specifically based
Right.
in religion. Be a Christian, and I love that too about your book is that you're always talking about being Christian, certain kinds of hymns that you like, different music that is spoken to
Mhm.
you, where you want your funeral to be at the cathedral in Asheville or
Mhm.
wherever you're going to church at the time. But you're also leaving open this really hospitable space in the book. You say, Jews think this, or Muslims do this, or how this is how other religious traditions see these issues. So it's a very open book that speaks from a grounded place of your own experience in life. But it also is wide. Uh, but I mean, that's the long way of saying this much shorter thing, and that is it. It invites the integration of all of that, um, those spiritual and religious and ritual questions with environmentalism, which I think is essentially a quest for the safety of the body of the earth and the safety of our bodies.
Mhm.
And so to talk about death and to be honest about this brings together bodiliness in a place that you don't really expect to be having those conversations. And I think it does kind of jar the imagination, and it causes people to look at the whole thing a little differently.
Mhm. Yeah, I think my friend Brian Cole, who I reference in my friendships a lot. People know, your friends that other people are like, yeah, you talk about that person a lot. He's one of those people. And I think, where I don't have like the training and as a biblical scholar, he can kind of hear me say something and bounce it back like from a theological perspective. So one thing he has told me as I wrote this book was, the way we honor our bodies can reflect the way we honor the earth and our communities. And so that reverence for the body is is a pretty big deal, because it's really the safety of us as humans that is the concern with the climate crisis. um, and I think that like you said, the reference to the body, the collective body, our human body, the earth, um, it is all related when we talk about dying of our bodies.